Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome, jerks. Just had a fun show on the Broken Baker. I hope everyone got to check that out. That was fun. Make sure you subscribe to the Broken Baker. That was so much fun. We were on with attorney Bederow and attorney Andrea Burkhart, and Brandy Churchwell, along with Valhalla and the Broken Baker. That was fun. I hope people check that out if you didn't get to watch it. We have an exciting show tonight, too. We have two attorneys, former assistant district attorneys, two former prosecutors, one from Massachusetts who's going to give us a lot of insight on how the courts work, specifically to what we mentioned the other night. Was that last night? I think it was last night. I'm losing track of nights. No, I took last night off. It was the night before. The last big show that we did that got like 80,000 views, that one with Turtle Boy and Attorney Bederow and Attorney Melanie Little. That was a great show with Mazza Media. If you haven't checked that out, we're going to kind of do a follow-up about the jury, about jury instructions, and also about the transcripts and whether they can actually do readbacks and how it works in Massachusetts. We have two attorneys. Shannon McMahon ran for district attorney DA in Bristol County. She may run again. She's a practicing attorney now. She used to prosecute people as well. So she's got a very good understanding of how the courts work. She's going to give us an update on all of this. We also have Mazza Media here tonight. He's going to be with us until about 9:30, and then he's going to maybe jump off a little early because he's going to be on the LTL show. And, of course, we have attorney Mark Bederow returning. So let's bring them all up right now. Hey, everybody. How you doing tonight?
Good.
Are we all tired? I think consensus
awesome.
is we're all tired right now. Bederow is not tired. He's done like 2-3 hours already. How many hours have you done this weekend on this streaming stuff?
Well, nothing last night. Last night was family, dinner out. Today was a lot of time writing an appellate brief. Watched a little baseball, and then this. So I'm good.
You're good.
I'm good.
And what about you, Mazza Media? You got your microphone turned off, so make sure you get that on.
Yeah,
how are you doing this weekend? You're
good,
working today too, right?
Yeah, rocking a new headset today. I was out in Auburn today for about 2 hours, about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, with a bunch of great people. We were doing a standout in Auburn, Massachusetts today, just south of Worcester. It was a great time until it rained, but one guy actually stayed out there even though it was raining. And then when we all went into the American Legion for drinks, he was still out there like a half hour later. So props to him. It was a great time. I had about 16 people show up, and it was awesome. A lot of vehicles. Traffic was deadlocked because of all the holiday weekend traveling and all that. So it was a lot of people to see the free Karen Reed sign. We got no middle fingers, which was great news. We had one guy give us a thumbs down, but there's always that one dude, and he was that one guy. But a lot of honking, at least 3 Amazon trucks. It was a great time. I had a great time. So we streamed that live, and ton of fun. So a lot of energy, a lot of positive energy. This movement's very strong right now. So
was that the first time they did a standout out there?
They've been doing that every Sunday for quite a while. I heard they've been doing it for probably months, I believe. So
wow,
yeah.
Awesome. And attorney Shannon McMahon, welcome back to the show. How are you doing this weekend?
I'm good. It was a nice, relaxing weekend. Would have liked to end it Friday a little bit differently, especially after the 4:15 nod. But I have a little bit of hope that at 4:15, when they thought that they might be able to get it done, it means that there's some movement. It's not completely stagnant and everyone's saying the exact same thing. There was at least some hope for movement. I don't know. I think after the Rodriguez charge, I think it should come back in 25, 30 minutes.
You think that's going to be Monday?
I think if it's not Monday, I think there are some issues.
I'm hopeful. I'm definitely hopeful.
I'm always hopeful. But,
yeah.
I'm with everybody else. I was just watching you guys on the other show, and I've never seen anything like this.
Unless there's a kook.
Yeah, and that's
Always
the scariest thing.
Just worry
I
about
can't
the
see
one
this
kook.
being anything but 11-1. And you know, before I was a prosecutor, and I was a defense attorney before I was a prosecutor, but before I was even a defense attorney, I was clerk for the Superior Court in Massachusetts. I was the judicial clerk, so I saw tons and
of
tons
cases.
of murder cases, and I've never watched an entire homicide trial, and when the verdict came back, I couldn't at least wrap my head around it. Like I've always at least been able to say, well, they put weight on this and they did this, and that's how they came to this. I got nothing. I know you're bringing us all on because we're lawyers, but I got nothing on this one. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. You know, most cases, and Mark will tell you right off the bat, you have a cop, the lead cop that's texting his buddies about nudes of your client. That's the game. That's it. That's over. You know, I mean, it's over. Never mind all of this other stuff. The feds experts and all of that. I mean, that should be game, set, match. You have like too much evidence. And I think that, Mark, you might have said it on the prior show. It's almost like the burden's shifted to the defense now. And now the jury wants the defense to prove it was who.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, but the reasonable doubt here is suffocating. It's overwhelming. It's everywhere. And I mean, you start with the experts. I mean, that's per se reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
Everything else is, you know, cherry on the sundae or whatever the expression is. It's all excess. There's nothing else that anybody needs. I don't think there's probable cause at this point, let alone proof beyond a reasonable doubt. So I don't know what we're doing here. I still think they'll figure it out because of this car accident evidence. And if they don't, then, you know, you might have a sleeper kook. It does happen, especially on high profile cases. You know, there's more of a risk of somebody who wants to be there for their own reasons, but I still think that they'll figure it out. But, you know, a hung jury is certainly more in play than you would have thought a couple of days ago. But I still think it's hard for me to believe it's anything other than 11-1, and they'll figure it out.
Let's talk about what jury read back. This whole issue with the transcripts. How does this work in Massachusetts, Shannon? Because everyone's talking about it on Twitter since we brought it up the other night. Since you
we opened a can of worms.
We did.
Yeah. So I believe it was in 2018. Stenos were essentially taken out of the courtroom. So there was no longer a regular steno in every single case.
Why did that happen?
So I'm assuming it's for cost. But there's audio. So, but it's essentially about who's got jurisdiction now. So the stenos, I believe, were part of the judicial branch. But the clerks are now in charge of the audio. So in order to get, and I want to be very clear, like you can get the audio of what happened in your trial that day. You just have to say what courtroom you were in, what time it was, what your hearing was, who your client is, and you can get the audio, but then you bring it to a steno and you pay for the transcript, except for murder cases. And it's a list of sex cases that have to have an actual court reporter in the room doing it as well as the audio. We don't do readbacks here. It's not done. And I got to be honest, I actually had to go on and actually research why we don't do it, because it's a question that I've never been asked before. We don't do it. It's and it's actually case law. And essentially the SJC and the Mass Appellate Courts have all held up that it's the collective memory of the jury. If the only, I think in first impression, it was the Commonwealth versus Mandeville. And that essentially said that because it's judicial discretion as to whether or not to read it. they said it wasn't reversible error for the judge to allow a portion to be read because she read the direct testimony and the cross-examination. But they very, very heavily warned, even though it's judicial discretion to read back, it can create more importance on that particular person's testimony. So they caution to use it very, very slightly. And like I said, I've been working in the Massachusetts courts since 2001, and I've never seen it done. So when you have an instruction from the SJC telling judges, yeah, you can read it to them, but we haven't quite answered exactly why you should be cautious, but you should be cautious. None of them are going to do it. So they don't. They rely 100% on the collective memory of the jurors.
Mark,
I know Mark's losing his mind right now. I can see the wheels running. Like I just.
What is this, 1902? That's what he's ready to say.
Listen, we just started e-filing. Let's not get carried away. We just started
so ass backwards, pathetic. I can't even begin to explain. And, you know, it's funny that of all places, Massachusetts, of all places, wants to cut back when they give out more free stuff to anyone than probably any other state in the country, except for a criminal defendant who's on trial for murder. You're on your own because we're going to cut costs. This is unbelievable. And this
I will say, hold on, before I don't want to like trash the state, because I will say in 2018,
I'll go right ahead.
Okay, I will. Don't worry. I don't
hold back.
When the stenos stopped in 2018, the Commonwealth versus Mandeville had already happened.
Okay.
So the case law was set already. So, you know, it's not like one came first. You know, the case law came first.
Case law.
Just to, you know, back them up a little bit.
Case law is one thing, but case law gets changed all the time because it's wrong and it ought to be right. And this case is a poster child of why it's wrong. It's 70 something witnesses, 600 and something or whatever it is exhibits, 2 months of trial. And the idea that you should remember everything. First of all, if I told you there were 70 witnesses, try naming them all. Impossible, right? Try remembering what all of them said. Impossible. And if it's not bad enough, the prosecutor who has a dial tone, monotone, droning on, you can't remember half of what he said. You probably tuned out 80% of what he said. And then their answer is, well, don't worry, because we'll trust jurors to take notes, which means you have faith that all 12 of them are going to pay attention. They're all going to get it right. They're not going to tune out. And then you're going to tell them, oh, by the way, the notes are not evidence, which they're not. They're there to refresh their recollection. But so now you're going to send jurors back. And the whole concept is, well, it's their memory that controls their recollection. So when you have juror 1 and juror 2 in the back have a disagreement about what the evidence is, and they go to their little notebooks, and one of them was doodling instead of taking notes, and the other one was out of ink, and they don't know what the hell it is. The answer is, does anybody else know? And we'll just go with you. When the most obvious thing to do, dummies, is to write a note to the court and say, we have a problem that we need resolved. We would like the direct testimony of and cross-examination of witness so-and-so about this critical point. And this, I mean, Mike, we said this.
Let me stop you there for 1 minute, though. If a jury doesn't have the mind to ask that kind of question, they could blow right past this without even ever asking that, right?
Well, they're not, because they're not told. In New York, every single jury, as part of the instructions, after summations, before they deliberate, every single jury is told, and if you need readback, you simply deliver a note through the foreperson, if that's what the jury wants, and you have to tell us what witness, and you must even specify, do you want direct? Do you want cross? Do you want both? Do you want the entire testimony, or do you want it on a specific issue? And the court reporter and the parties will go back to the courtroom before the jury. They'll take out the steno pad, and she will literally, or he will look through it and write down which pages. It will then be presented to the parties. Yes, it takes some time, and you agree or disagree, and then you bring the jury in and you read it back. And you know what you'll find out? That if they're smart enough to ask for something in particular, when you bring them back to listen to it, they're all doing like this. They're all leaning in. They're all paying attention because they all want to know. And there's a reason that they're doing this. It's not that they can't remember anything, but there could be a disagreement. And what if there's a disagreement about one of these ARCA guys said on cross-examination about whether the DNA on the taillight meant anything? I don't know what they're fighting about, or whether it could be anything. But the idea that in a case like this, that they feel it's important enough that we have to have, a woman talking into the thing to make a recording because it's a murder case, but it's not important enough to allow jurors who could be sending a innocent woman to prison for the rest of her life, that we can't determine, to make sure they get it right because we don't want to pay for it. That's disgraceful.
So they're basically doing it with the same accuracy of the Salem witch trials is basically what you're telling me.
Well,
you know what?
They can read back if it's during examination. So say there's a break, and Alan Jackson or David Ignetti says, I lost my train of thought.
Right. But
when
there are jurors who could be having a huge factual disagreement about a material issue that could spin the outcome.
Oh, Mark, I'm going to blow your mind in 30 seconds because I swear to God, and I can only speak for Bristol County and Suffolk County, because that's where I was a judicial clerk, but they weren't allowed notebooks back then. So no read back and no notes.
Notebooks, to me, are a bigger concern. If you're not going to do read back, you got to give them something, but now you're trusting them to do it right and to be diligent. Different people write different things down. They might make a mistake. They might zone out, and then the problem is they're going to use, if they disagree, they're going to use their notebooks as evidence when they're not supposed to, because juror 1 is going to say, I wrote this, and juror number 3 is going to say, well, no, I remember this. And now they're having arguments, not about their recollection, but who's a better note taker, which is exactly what they're not supposed to do. And, they're not allowed to take notes during summations either. So it's not like if something triggered them, because it's not evidence, so they can't write it down. This is ridiculous. And this is a case that everyone's watching, and the position of the court is don't even bother asking, because we can't tell you with that level of that number of witnesses, that amount of length of trial, and so much, particularly from the early part of the trial, could be gone. And I'll give you a perfect example. Okay. In his summation, Lally starts talking about 5 or 4 or 3 witnesses who said, I hit him. Bullshit. I don't remember that. Do you? Now, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I am, but maybe I am. And maybe some of the jurors agree with me. Maybe, if Lally said it, it must be true. I don't remember that. So now they go back and deliberate and say, well, I remember Katie McLaughlin said it, but what about that other guy? I don't know. Do you? And you know what the answer is? You ask for readback. That's what you do in any, I can't believe I'm going to call New York normal, but that's what you do in a normal state.
Hey, listen, I'm having a tough time standing up for Massachusetts right now.
This is embarrassing.
I will say, looking at the case law, and like I said, this is not an area where I've absolutely ever done a thorough research on, and I did today because I was genuinely curious. And reading through the cases, it is so Massachusetts remains pro-defense. I think the Chuy Rodriguez charge is extraordinarily for the defense. 100%. I think they call it a dynamite charge in some places, but I think in Massachusetts specifically, it is absolutely a dynamite charge. You add that with the moral certainty, it's almost impossible to find anybody guilty of anything. I think that they tried to make it so it was pro-defense, and the cases that have argued the reason why you shouldn't be allowed to read it in were because jurors were asking for testimony from cops. And it was the details, and what they should be looking for is whether or not they found them credible. Did they believe the gist of what they were saying? Not necessarily the finite details, which we have in here. And like I said, this is a case like I've never seen before.
Yep.
Everything is flipped. It's literally like the picture. It's everything's inverted. Nothing's where it should be. The burden's now on the defense. It's just everything's chaos. But I think the principle behind not doing a read back, and trust me, as a defense attorney now, I would love to have readbacks, especially for experts. But
having a blanket policy, literally, that says no readback, is just stupid. What?
So it's not a blanket policy, though, Mark. It is judicial discretion. But the case law,
but it's de facto that way.
Because of that, then that's fine.
Which essentially makes it a blanket rule.
And let's point the finger at the judge who said we're not going to do it in her instructions. Okay, then if I'm happy to point the arrows at her, then shame on her in a case like this. Or if she wants to blame the state, shame on all of them. Because what's going to happen here, or could happen, you may have a kook juror, or not kook, but somebody who's confused, saying, but she said I hit him, and that matters to me, and could be totally misinterpreting what the evidence is and has no recourse for other jurors who could be trying to persuade them, say that's not what it is. In any normal place, they would say, like the George Michael sports machine used to say, let's go to the videotape. Let's go to the transcript, not literally the transcript, but let's have it read back. And that's just the most common sense thing, which I understand means you can't do it in Massachusetts because it makes too much freaking sense. But seriously, I mean, this could be the difference of an acquittal or not. I don't think it's going to be a conviction anyway.
But just because this case is so crazy, for lack of a better term, it's just so outside of everything that we normally see around here. It's I would be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if the jury came back on Monday after the Tui Rodriguez charge and said, we just want one portion of someone's testimony. Because again, it is judicial discretion.
They were told they wouldn't get it, though. Why would they?
They may. It's still judicial discretion. It's just by the SJC and the appellate courts, they've strongly cautioned against it because of the adverse effect it can have.
No, what I'm saying is she told the jury, in essence, in her instructions, you're not going to get it. So what I'm saying is, why would the jury now ask for something they've been told they can't have? I don't know. They don't have the wherewithal to do that.
Won't.
Maybe they do.
I've seen her change her mind before. I mean, very quickly. To be
but she's not going to volunteer it, though.
And after the last trial with the mistrial, and
but
I don't think she wants to.
But I'm not talking about changing her mind. What I'm saying is, in order for her to change her mind, they have to ask. She's not going to volunteer.
Yeah, no, they have to ask.
Right, but why would they ask if they were told
not to? They don't know.
Let me ask you another question, because is there any way that this could end up being a reason for an appeal if it goes the wrong way for Karen Reed? Like the fact that that the judge did that. The judge instructed them. You got everything. Don't ask for anything else.
Not in Massachusetts. I mean, they won't get a state appellate issue.
I mean, based on what Shannon just told us earlier, the only way they could do that is if they were willing to literally overrule prior precedent, which has happened from time to time. But if you went on just the precedent as it stands now, from what we were just told, no. But I mean, look, I don't think she's going to be in a position to appeal. But if they end up changing the rule as a matter of policy because there's a hung jury, well, a lot of good that does Karen Reed, because, good luck. Maybe you'll get a retrial. You're still going to have people accusing you of being guilty and getting stares. If you are retried, you're still going to have to pay the lawyers, go through this process again, because, they're just too dense to say that as a matter of course, you're not allowed to have readback. I mean, this is unfathomable to me that this is not even something except for the narrow exception that you've told us. I mean, and it's never a problem, by the way. I've never seen a case in 25 years in New York where all of a sudden a jury says, I need to have 30 witnesses read back. I mean, if anything, it tells you they're engaged. It tells you they're trying to resolve factual issues, and we need to hear something. I mean, you should encourage this, not discourage it.
And I'll be honest, I was actually on a jury. I couldn't believe it. I was on a jury about 2 months ago. I got picked, and I'd never even been called for jury duty before.
You got
And
picked?
you know, I live here, I work here. There's
Criminal?
every judge was at my, you know, one of my weddings. I mean, like and I got picked. It was a contract case, and I don't have anything to do with that area of law, and they needed a juror. And so I was picked, and I will tell you, that was the coolest experience I've had as a lawyer, as a litigator. It was the coolest thing. It was a 7-day trial, and it was awesome. Jurors like to read. They love exhibits. Like, they want to read it all because they think someone's hiding something in that courtroom. And they are like just chomping at the bit to get back in the room and go look. It's like looking through someone's diary. Like everyone's trying to get the book.
What's so interesting is, I mean, this trial has been televised or streamed, whatever, for everyone. It's already been kind of a joke for a lot of reasons. I mean, the way it's been presented, and I mean, we've been saying this for weeks. It feels like kind of it's turned into a cartoon in many ways. And, you know, there's all these jokes about forget it, Jake, it's Chinatown. You saw the disaster the other day with the jury, the verdict sheet, which, you know, became a joke. It's just joke after joke with how pathetic this is.
Video,
and they saved the best for last. This is unbelievable. And people are seeing this, and you can't even have readback in a 2-month murder case with 70 witnesses where the prosecutor is misrepresenting the state of the evidence in his summation because he can't keep it straight either. He's probably not even lying. He probably
I don't think he's lying. I think he's just so done.
I mean, it's hard to remember all of this stuff. And the idea that you can't.
I think that's an appellate issue. His closing, I think, had some appellate issues.
Right. Well, it could come into the same thing. I mean,
I think that's
representing, and the jury could be getting snookered by this and has no check on this other than, you know, let's go to the notebooks.
Yeah.
Some questions that came in. Here's one about what are your thoughts on jury majority verdicts versus what it is now, jury unanimous verdicts?
No.
Don't
way.
like it? Why not?
I mean, because, first of all, you have to, when you think about a question like this, you have to take away your instant anger, frustration, and bias over the case you're listening to now. Okay. As a criminal defense attorney, somebody's getting convicted and getting a life sentence because they got convicted 11-1. No, thank you.
Yeah, no, and I couldn't.
What about for not guilty?
There's a reason superior court cases have.
What about the other way though? What if it's just for not guilty?
No, because I think you can't have it one way and not. It's got to be. It's got to be both ways. And this case is a terrible example because, I mean, look, this is as strong a reasonable doubt case as you'll usually ever see on a case that gets tried. I mean, it's everywhere. And, you know, I still think it'll come out that way. But no, what I would think about a case like this, if they tried this case again, if you put this judge aside for a minute, put her aside, I would do a bench trial. Forget her. That's a different conversation. This case is a legal defense, open and shut, not guilty on a reasonable doubt standard. And a judge, put aside this one, is going to hear the arc of witnesses and say, we're done here. That's per se reasonable doubt.
Do you agree with that, Shannon?
It's a tough call. I practice here, so I'm going to dance around this delicately. I think you would have to at least have an idea of who is going to be on the bench, not necessarily judge shopping, but you would certainly want to know who.
Yeah, that's always a factor. Of course, you have to know your
really sure. I can bitch slap my clients as often as I want to. I'm not really sure. I could even convince Karen Reed to go for a bench trial as opposed to 12 regular citizens, because she's a strong, independent woman who's clearly pissed off and obviously rubs some people the wrong way. What if it's the judge?
Well, that's true. But I mean, if you have a judge, again, I'm not talking about Canone because that's a separate conversation. I'm not sure, by the way, I'm not sure I would change my mind in front of her, but that's a different conversation. That's not worth getting into, because whatever she is, most judges, if you accept that they are literally intelligent people, meaning not imbeciles, literally, not that I hate her or this. they understand what reasonable doubt is and what beyond a reasonable doubt is, and they understand what true experts are who say no car accident, impossible, can't be, and without more, that is reasonable doubt. And then you add in the Proctor stuff and all the other stuff. And there are many judges who can dislike someone. And I'm not saying there's any reason to dislike Karen Reed, except for, I mean, not this judge doesn't like her. That's obvious. I don't think she likes anybody except, you know, Madam Court Reporter.
But been nice to me. She's always been very nice to me.
No, listen, I mean, who knows? But I mean, any judge who's being judicious would see that this is as open and shut a not guilty as a legal exercise. I mean, if you had this case on a law school exam, these are the issues. What is the outcome here?
Yeah.
Every single person, any law student would say, 100% would say the evidence here supports a finding of not guilty. Every single one.
And I do agree with you. Like I said, nothing about this case is normal. So normally I would really never go on like a felony to a bench, but
I'm doing one right now.
About this case, I've never had the feds just carte blanche donate some experts to say use for free, and the judge knows that they're working for the feds.
Better believe it. She knows
by the way,
where they came from.
Very good looking. They're unbelievably articulate, and just as a little icing on the cake, they're extraordinarily qualified. In fact, they're the most qualified in the world.
I thought you were going to say something else. Actually, that's
no. I mean, like I
thought there was
I
room for a Joe Paul joke there.
Every woman is like in love.
They're so hot. They're
not really my. I mean, good-looking men, very, very good-looking, but just not my type.
Yeah, too geeky.
Yeah, you know, a bit. Yeah,
too science oriented. Some people don't. Some people love that. MB, I got a summons for jury duty next month. If I'm selected, how do I handle that one kook?
Well, if you act like the kook, you can avoid serving on a jury. So it depends. Do you mean how do you get off, or how do you deal with a kook? You know, you can't do anything.
I know the perfect person to imitate if you want to get off jury duty. Just act like that Grant guy. They'll throw you right out of there.
Eating crayons, like
some
glue going on.
No, there's that video of him like gnawing on his hand.
That'll do it. That'll do
it.
Yeah, that's one way.
Just not saying guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seen that happen before. Just everyone's guilty, or I've seen jurors come up and be like, "Well, I hate all cops," and I've seen judges just ridicule jurors into essentially submission, and then they didn't get picked anyway. But I mean, they get wrecked for a little while, especially when it's a busy courthouse like where I used to prosecute. It's judges had zero tolerance for that. Oh, I'm going to try to be anti-cop, anti-this, anti-that, and get out of it. Judges were having zero of that. It was like, I don't care. Sit down. You're here all day. There's like 10 other trials.
I'm embarrassed for the good people of Massachusetts. Your criminal justice system is a national laughingstock that's playing out live and has turned into a situation where somebody who is obviously innocent, it probably will be acquitted, but is in peril. And the way this thing is set up, there's like there's nothing they can do about it. Just go on memory and hope for the best. That's terrible.
Like I said, I mean, I've seen it. I've seen both sides of the argument. Like I said, I mean, I do believe that there should be some inherent, at the end of the day, did you trust this person? As opposed to, can you remember how many millimeters they said one piece of glass was versus the other piece of glass? It's about the general consensus. And I think it also does promote the discussion amongst the jury, because it is the collective memory of the jury. So when, if I'm on a jury and you're on a jury, Mark, and I say, well, I remember Proctor saying this, and you say, well, I thought he said this. And then we bring in the other 9 people, 10 people, and they say,
it was like a game of telephone.
Yeah, I don't like the game of, groupthink, so I'm going to yield.
Yeah.
And The one person may be right. Now they may not be, but there's an easy way to resolve it. Let's get the read back.
And I agree with you. Ease is definitely there, but I do, Massachusetts our Constitution predates the United States one, for Christ's sake. I mean, we're old in our ways. Look at you've been into that courthouse. I mean, need I say much more?
You're right.
That's kind of what we do around here.
They should be credited. They did.
We should have all summers off and all winters off because there's no heat and there's no air conditioning.
They did create the most effective way to get a confession out of innocent women. Just dunk them in water until they confess. So they should get credit for that. You're right.
That was a long time ago.
Well,
literally, that happened in my town, by the way. I'm very sensitive to that. That happened in my town.
I mean, even a week ago, you saw a judge have a hissy fit over a verdict sheet that clearly was flawed, get all defensive, yell at the lawyers, try to get the local lawyer to agree with her. And he says, I don't agree with you. Okay. And then look at the client, yell at her for having the temerity to look around and say, I feel like I'm in a kangaroo court or something, put her on the front page of the newspaper the next day, which hopefully the jury doesn't see, but they could. And then it turns out when she goes back to chambers and comes back an hour later, she spoke to somebody, a clerk, maybe another judge, who says, you know what, you're screwing this up, and ends up without saying these words, but makes it clear to Jackson, you're right.
Yeah.
What a joke.
I mean, I will give it to her on this level. This is being televised globally at this point. I think she did the right thing by calling it. Ultimately, she did the right thing.
But she made a joke out of it.
It was probably an error outside of her.
Of course, realm, but the way she handled it was
that jury verdict slip, and Mike, I sent it to you. The original one is the one it has the language not guilty of all charges, including the lesser included listed below. It's that parenthetical that was missing. And I think that once she saw that changed it, but they'd already seen the slip. So now it requires an additional charge to rectify the wrong slip, as well as putting the real slip in.
It's ridiculous. Got a comment here. They want to know, Mark, if you'll take a look at Kevin Mahoney's interview on Yellow Cottage Tale. Provide a response on an upcoming episode. He's indicating ARCA was influenced by the feds in the testimony.
Look, the answer is, first of all, I wouldn't watch Yellow Cottage Idiot for anything and give him the click. So if you want to tell me what they said, I'll be happy to respond that way. But honestly, that guy repulses me. And no, as far as a real lawyer saying, what did he say about the ARCA witnesses? That they were,
he said they were influenced by the feds.
Come on. I mean, look, there's a reason why the feds, look, maybe the defense could have articulated this more. I don't know. They clearly know what they're doing, so they don't need to hear it from armchair quarterbacks. But when Lally tries to make a big deal out of, well, they didn't see the taillight and they didn't see this, there's a reason for that. They're trying not to influence them in any way because the feds came in. Yes, they're looking at a potential investigation, but they want these witnesses to be agnostic and uninfluenced to either side. They want as pure an opinion based on science as possible. So that's why they're not showing them the taillight and all that. And what did these guys say on cross anyway? It doesn't matter because it doesn't affect the scientific analysis. So I don't know why a credible lawyer, and I mean, I don't know him personally, but I know he's a real lawyer. He's had, as I understand it, locally, he's a very credible lawyer. Why he would say that the feds engaged him? That's what it is. I mean, how does that make them biased?
I think he's got an issue with Yannetti for some reason.
Well, clearly, there's either something there, or I mean, I think I did look something up because I know he's been very critical, and I don't know him, but he had some case where he was using something about the Karen Reed case to try to use to his advantage about something that happened. I don't know the full details, and I don't know if that's what it is, but it seems more than that. I mean, it seems very
it seems personal, like
it
a Kevin
a little intense.
Yeah,
but the idea that a real credible lawyer would think that these independently hired witnesses, I mean, the feds hire people. I mean, does that make them biased because they're paying them? I mean, I think, short of some real evidence, that's a strange thing to say.
Yeah, if Mr. Attorney Mahoney wants to unblock me, maybe he can come on the show and defend himself.
There's another response too. Do you not think that if the Norfolk DA could have found a real expert instead of the clown from the state police, that would have contradicted the ARCA people? That they would have? Of course they would have, but they didn't. And they didn't because they probably couldn't find one who would contradict these guys. So you have to get the state trooper who says, what am I supposed to say? And I'll say it.
There's another question. Are jurors allowed to look up their rights as jurors outside of court as long as they don't research specifics of the case?
What do you mean look up their right? You mean like,
what are their rights?
Read back?
So my understanding is they get like the juror informational guide right off the cuff. And they're allowed to research anything they want as long as it's not about the case. You're certainly allowed to. I mean, I would make the argument I can look up anything I want to, as long as it's not directly related to the case.
Mike, you're silent.
Oh, thank you. I want to say we got a comment from Luna's mom before I post it. I just want to say I don't agree with the sentiment at all. And the reason why, I'm just going to post it up there, I want to respond. But the reason I say that is she took on people, took on her own DA, the DA of Bristol County. And Luna's mom says, wow, Shannon, love you, but you might be part of the problem. You seem to accept this nonsense because you have been part of this thing for too long. Do you want to respond to that at all?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like I said, you said it best. I mean, I was a prosecutor who ran against my former boss because I really, really believe that corruption is not only real, but it's alive and well here in Massachusetts. Having worked for the judicial branch as long as I did, I don't see corruption in the judicial branch. I absolutely have seen it in the executive branch of the DA's office. I've seen it firsthand. I've run against it, and I got to see an even better view of it from that angle. But judges are making judgment calls based on the law, and I hear it every day. Right before the Karen Reed trial, everyone was up in arms because people were being released on low amounts of bail. That's not the individual trial judge's fault. Blame the SJC. That's the Supreme Judicial Court. That's who made the decisions about bail should not be a punishment, and it needs to be based primarily on flight risk post-COVID. So to blame the individual judges who are essentially doing their jobs, I wouldn't say I'm blind to what's going on. I'm just saying that I'm not ready to go out on a limb and say that this particular judge is doing a bad job because she's doing what she's being told to by her supervisors. And Mike, there's another thing I wanted to talk about because I've seen this come up a lot. Who's got oversight of the DA's office? And I think you guys got this question on the last show. And that's one of the things I ran on. Is there were a few prosecutors who were willing in Massachusetts who were willing to have somebody from the AG's office or a team of people from the AG's office be an oversight for district attorneys. So we not only had a place to go to for guidance, which I think is important because you have your own budget, you have your own kind of autonomy. And especially when you're in these small counties and you're not in drop dead center Boston, you're forgotten about. You've been given your money and go do your thing. Just don't make too many headaches for the people in Boston, especially Bristol County. We're like the redheaded stepchildren. We're dead last. So you can do anything over here. Yeah, Norfolk's looking pretty good compared to Bristol County. But there's, I believe in an oversight, and I did want to address that tonight because I saw about 100 different questions throughout Twitter and through the YouTube videos that I've been watching. Who's got oversight? And the question you need to ask is, are the people that you're going to elect willing to be part of something that includes oversight? And I would strongly believe that the people who are in charge right now, if they're over 70 years old and white, aging, a little bit on the heavier set, white guys who have been in the same job for over 25 years, then I'm pretty much willing to bank they're not going to subscribe to that.
There's
and
one.
even some of the new people like Maura Healey and the AG now, like I haven't seen them do anything about any of these issues. They haven't really spoken.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's really disappointing.
I wanted to add one thing to what Shannon said about, the judge is not corrupt. She's doing her job. I think there's like a middle ground between that. I'm not saying she's corrupt, but she's not doing her job very well lately either. And I think, that appears obvious to, I think, anyone who's watching this, and certainly it's easier, I understand, for lawyers who don't have to deal with her or deal with anything here, but particularly the last week or so, it's bad.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good point. She's not corrupt. She's just not good at her job, and she's not doing a good job. Maz, I gotta get Maz in here because he's gonna have to drop off soon. Maz, do you have any comments on anything you've been hearing, or do you want to make even a comment before you take off tonight to go to LTL?
Well, I'm going to change the subject just here for a few minutes. If anybody's in Dedham tomorrow, just don't engage with any counter protesters. There's rumors right now that there might be a lot more people showing up tomorrow. My particular opinion is I don't think they're going to show up at all, quite honestly, is my particular prediction. So just don't engage tomorrow.
Turn your back on them. That's what everyone did yesterday. Turn your
back on them and just ignore them, because they're going to try to. They're basically like people that are drowning right now and trying to get their last gasp of air just before this verdict comes out. It's either not guilty or a hung jury, because they know it's just they've just lost, and they're just trying to do everything they can now desperately. So just ignore them tomorrow and just do the best you can. I really I'm going to be there tomorrow. I got to do everything I can just to not say anything and ignore them, because I've had, like everybody, a few back and forths with these people. Usually I don't even respond to them when they contact me, and one of them blocked me once. One of the turncoats out there that was a very concerned aunt back in October for Aiden that eventually turned. So it's truly a tragedy, but sometimes these things do happen. But it's just, we're just going to ignore them. They might even just try to, they might even not even show up tomorrow, and they're just trying to get us all wound up. So just be on the lookout for that. But it's going to be a great day tomorrow. I'm hoping for this to hopefully be the final day. We'll see. We don't know. We don't know how many days this could go on for, but just we just got to keep patient and just not be anxious for it. And in terms of the judge, Auntie Bev Emperor, as I like to jokingly call her, the way she treated Karen and Alan Jackson and all of them throughout this whole thing has occasionally just been, even during some of the hearings, was just ridiculous the way she would act. And none of us are a big fan of it. But I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if she's really corrupt. I don't know what her deal is, or she's just favorable towards Lunchbox. I don't know. But some people want me to go after Adam Lally tomorrow. I have no plans to do that. So we'll see.
Let's see if you see him out back smoking.
Yeah. I'll say, what did you think about the not guilty verdict today? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, we'll see. But that video was. People were talking about that today during the when we had the standout today. They were talking about the video, and they're like, "Man, that was so hilarious what you did to Adam." I mean, all I did was ask him questions. He didn't want to answer the questions. He had no answer for it. He's not prepared for Karen to be innocent. Apparently, he thinks he must have done a great job. But to me, he just, he phoned it in, this whole thing, and he really didn't present anything well. And it's, to an earlier point, the jury taking notes and having notes that are probably sporadic and not really concise are, with Adam Lally, did he have a tactic to maybe add more witnesses that he should? I've always said maybe 40 to 50% of those witnesses were probably people that needed to actually be on the stand. But then the rest of them, did they really need to be there at all? And was he just doing that as a tactic just to dilute the jury with too much information, too much conversation, too much data on all that? So
I see what you did there, by the way. We've laughed about him being a dial tone, and you said he phoned it in. I got you.
Yeah. Didn't even realize
nice
they made a joke there, but
very nice.
Beautiful. You guys are like Simon and Garfunkel over here.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful.
Exactly. So, yeah. But I would say that what happened Friday. Oh, God.
I was going to say good luck tomorrow. I hope you have a lot of fun tomorrow, and hope you get to see the verdict tomorrow.
I
Yeah.
hope so too. I really do. But like I said, I mean, what we saw Friday with those counter protesters was the wildest thing we've seen since Police Academy 2, when Zed and his crew crashed the town fair, the street fair. It was crazy. It was all was missing was
Wild.
the music. Yeah. Some
I
kid
love
yelled
how
out, "You
I like
freak!"
this the way he puts the sign out. Like, just
Yeah.
it's such a weird, like, the
Oh,
body
man.
language too of them. Just
Oh man.
they look so angry. It's like,
Oh, it's crazy. The cops
Yeah,
and
they
the
do look
press were
angry.
all
They
over it.
definitely looked angry.
Yeah. So,
And if you're gonna
Yeah, I
like
heard
protest, like seriously show up with more than 5 people. If you know you're going against 2,000, like come on, like call
yeah,
everybody, and I mean,
especially when you have those 5 people too. Like, we
yeah, I
all
mean,
know
like
what they're
every
about.
one of them.
Like,
I don't
even
know
the
these
media
people
is like
at all,
laughing
but
at
like
them.
you came in with, it looked like they just stopped at CVS on the way
Oompa
and got the
Loompas.
$1.99 cardboard and like one Sharpie.
Yeah,
all
and
stared
there
at
was
it,
some
just wrote something
misspellings they
about,
crossed out.
like, we don't like Karen, and that's it.
I
we
heard-
want
yeah.
justice for John O'Keefe. No, you
Yeah.
don't. You guys don't care about John
Yeah,
O'Keefe
they don't
or
care
Karen
about
Reed
John
or any
O'Keefe.
of this. You just hate Turtle Boy. Turtle
That's
Boy is
it.
bad in your opinion. That's it.
That's it.
Oh,
And I heard a guy named Tony Fed might show up tomorrow. He's a total whack job. Like, he's
Yeah.
just a problem no matter where he goes. So
this
stay
DePetro
away.
guy is
Turn your
really,
back on him.
this
What is it?
DePetro guy has been, this John DePetro has been quite the character online as well. He was actually
I heard
hanging
he's
out with
going
them.
tomorrow. I have
Is he?
intel that he might be there tomorrow too.
He's quite the character. He was hanging out with them during their counter protest and acting like he's a big hero over there. It's like, dude, go back to Rhode Island. I mean, I love Rhode Island. I mean, but just go back to Rhode Island. Just go home. Just go home, man. So, all right. So I'm gonna head out here, guys, and thank you so much for having me. And I'm sure we'll probably be on tomorrow, talk about whatever goes on tomorrow. So we'll see. Hopefully, this is the end of it tomorrow. Karen Reed, not guilty is what we want. And that's about that. So hopefully this sounds good on these headsets. This headset.
Yeah, you sound good.
I do better than the last one. Do you think?
I don't know. You always sound good. I've never had an issue with you.
Well, thank
You
you.
have my
I'll ask
favorite
my
voice
girlfriend because
ever.
she
You have
she
my
loves the
absolute
Mazza
favorite
voice.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Shannon. I appreciate it.
I can pick you out of a lineup anywhere in the world. I'm like, oh, Jesus
Yeah.
Christ, Mazza Media. Where is he on?
Yeah,
Is it my
yeah,
phone? Is it my
exactly.
computer? Is it my laptop? What's on?
The first
I
time I
love it.
showed up outside of court, before I revealed my face online, people were walking by me, and the woman turns around. She goes, "You're Mazza Media, aren't you?" I'm
I
like,
absolutely
Yeah.
would have known you. And I can respect it because I have
Yeah.
a very, very deep, throaty Nina Simone or ex Marlboro commercial sounding voice. So, it's that like unique sounding voice, and everyone can find you no matter what.
Yeah,
Exactly.
My
exactly.
kids
They
can
can't-
hear me say no a mile away. They know that voice better than anything.
That's awesome. That's fun.
Thank you so
Excellent,
much,
guys.
Mazza Media. Have a
Take
great,
care.
great time tomorrow. And follow
Yep.
Mazza Media on YouTube and Twitter and X. And check them out later, too, at LTL Media tonight. Thank you so much, Mazza.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a great one. Free Karen
Okay.
Reed. All
Free
right.
Karen Reed.
Bye-bye.
And Mazza's going to take off. We're going to continue here the discussion. We have some other questions. They want to know if you guys have the same interior decorator.
Well, this is my home office.
Yeah, me too.
Mine's a painting from my kid. And then there's a map of Bristol, Rhode Island, where I went to college. So I don't know if Mark has those things in his office.
No, I have actually have a map, an old 1913 map of Martha's Vineyard on the wall, which someday I'll show you. I have my you can see the Red Sox World Series
No.
Boston Globe behind, some more of that kind of stuff. The curtains that people complain about, as you know from earlier tonight, that are apparently
My curtains are the ones they really don't like over here.
other than that, I've got a dog on the floor over here, right, girl? Okay. And other than that, it's the same place.
I have my reading chair. That's the only cool thing about my office. I have the cool chair.
I've got a nice couch and table on the other side. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like the non-working side.
Yeah, that was the deal when I bought this house. It was like,
Yep.
I need at least just 6 feet where I can shut a door, and
Yep.
you guys know it's off limits. You're not allowed to speak to me. It's a sanity thing.
Got another comment here. A question. As practicing attorneys, how easily prosecutors can manipulate non-case as prosecutable? Is it common?
I'm not sure exactly what they mean. I mean, you can't just make a bad case good unless you're, manufacturing things. I mean, this case, I guess you could call a non-case. I don't know that they've made it prosecutable as much as the jury, for whatever reason, or a juror seems to be troubled. But to me, I mean, I'm probably just repeating myself again, but this case has as much reasonable doubt in a murder case that you'll usually see. I mean, usually there's at least a pretty argument back and forth, and it becomes what you'd call a triable case. I don't even think this is a triable case. I don't understand any of this. The evidence doesn't support it. The overmatching between lawyers is about as skewed as you'll ever see. And by the way, I don't think that the jury looks at that as a disadvantage for the defense. I think they probably think they're professional and really good and, not droning on as the other guy. So I don't know. That's why I still think it's going to end out the right way. I'm not really sure what's happening, but I don't know that he manipulated it into a prosecutable case as much as he just stumbled into it and found a juror who's confused.
I'm gonna put this right back on the DA themselves, the boss, the person in charge. If you've got a good DA and you have a line prosecutor who comes to you and says, "Listen, I have reviewed this. This thing is a piece of shit. We should not be going forward with this. I feel ethically compromised going forward with this." Then a good DA, a good boss would say, if you ethically feel like you can't go forward with this, we should drop this case. And they should rely on them because they're hired because of their intelligence, their experience, something. They were hired, but they were hired for their brain. Trust them. And my gut and my faith and my hope in my fellow members of the bar here in Mass is that somebody would have said something if they had a body to talk to, if they had a boss they could go to.
This one's even worse than that. And I agree with everything you just said. And Mike, you also know I've always thought this case never should have been indicted, let alone tried. But where it really crosses over into scandal is once they got the ARCA report. I mean, they can try to rationalize the Proctor stuff, which again, to me, falls in what Shannon is saying. Like, you got a real problem here, and how are you doing this with the Google searches? But once you get the ARCA report, and Morrissey knows about that, you've crossed over to trusting your people to full-blown scandal. What are you doing here? There must be a reason that's not a good one, because there isn't a sane prosecutor in America who, if they don't have an expert that can satisfactorily tell them why the ARCA guys are wrong, you can't go forward. But they're basically saying she didn't do it. Literally, like, it could not have been her car that did this. There's nothing to support your theory of backing up at that speed, at that range. And, to me, ethically at that point, I think you're actually violating, as we said, the Rule 3.8. I don't even think there's probable cause.
I think after the medical examiner's report, you don't get there.
That
I think
too.
Between Proctor's, the information that came out about Proctor through the feds, coupled with the medical examiners, you don't even have to get to ARCA. I don't even think you get there. I agree. Your own expert is saying we can't tell what the hell this is.
How we died. Yeah.
Where ARCA takes it is from, like, you have really bad judgment and you're doing the wrong thing and you have bad discretion, to scandalous misconduct, for sure. And on top of that, I mean, the other thing we've joked about, if any of this is funny, they haven't even proven that there's been a homicide of any sort. They've literally not established another human being caused.
Yeah, they don't know how he died. I mean, that's beyond hypothermia.
Right.
Well, let me ask you this: like, is there going to be any? Do you think there's going to be any, any repercussions to the DA or Lally?
Mark, if you don't mind, I'll take this one first, because I want to actually hear you, because I have a follow-up question that goes along with this, and I've been dying to ask you. So when this is said and done, there will clearly be some sort of fallout within the DA's office. And I know you said if it's a hung jury, you don't anticipate Morrissey retrying it.
They're going to say they will, but I think ultimately they won't. Right.
Yeah.
So I know Morrissey, and I disagree with you wholeheartedly.
Wow.
Only because, and I did agree with you originally, but once I started thinking about the Brian Walsh case, this is where I started to believe that his narcissism is so unattainable.
Off the charts.
It's amazing. He single-handedly tossed the Brian Walsh case by having experts argue against the evidence they're going to use in the Brian Walsh case, in this case. And this, at best, was an accident. The Brian Walsh case is a well-documented
Slam dunk murder.
Sadistic murder.
I mean, a grotesque,
Yeah.
sick,
Mother with children.
murder. You know, I mean, and you were willing to compromise that, as well as the integrity of all of the other investigations that you've done using this science. And now you're not going to retry it. I think he absolutely has to. I think it's political suicide. He has been the DA for 35 years in Norfolk. He's not getting another job after this. It's all or nothing. He's either got to complete another 4 years and hope that there's no other crazy cases that come into Norfolk, or he's done. I think he absolutely has to. And realistically, he's at least got to make it look like he's retrying it for the beginning portion and actually go through the motions, because the election will be here in 2 years.
2 years,
so it'll be right at that sweet spot where he's actually going to have to make a decision and show movement. He can't just say, oh yeah, we're gonna retry it. He's gonna actually have to show traction. I mean, at the end of the day, if your philosophy is this woman killed a Boston cop, such that we're willing to actually suggest that the evidence we use in almost all of our homicide cases is bullshit, then he has to say we're going after her again. You can't have it both ways.
So Morrissey, I think, is done anyway. Yeah. So that's going to factor in.
I know that. I don't think he knows that.
He's not going to win another election.
Yeah, I don't think he runs again.
You know, he may win certain precinct of Canton where like Fairview Road is and the waterfall is. And
the McAlbert vote.
Maybe he'll get like 57 votes in those areas of Canton. He's not going to be reelected. He probably won't run again. And the reason ultimately that he'll make the decision that he's going to make, it's not about because there's a dead cop. It's about self-preservation. He's a creature that wants to survive any way he can. And he knows that there's clearly some kind of federal investigation going on. He knows that by trying the case, at least this time, he kind of kicked the can down the road. He knows that shortly before the trial started, the feds tried to nuke him by giving the ARCA report and other materials to the defense and the prosecution. He knows that the feds have other materials that they probably have not disclosed and that a retrial will lead to. He knows that he's got a scumbag named Michael Proctor who's working literally out of his office, right? He literally, that's where he reports to work, and that he's got a governor screaming and yelling about him, and Proctor's going to get fired, and that if he calls him, he's going to get in trouble. He knows that he's a delegate, to the Democrat convention with some very, very hard left Massachusetts politicians who don't look like him. Whether it be the way he looks, gender, and they're going to have very little regard for him. And don't underestimate the Proctor factor, given what he said about Karen Reed and all of that. So he's got that at risk. He's got every other reason not to do it. And ultimately, he'll say he's going to, but he's ultimately going to do what he thinks is best for him. And, you don't know how aggressive the feds will be in trying to stop it the second time, whether they take even stronger actions to do that. So I just think he's in an untenable position, and the best thing that could happen for him is I mean, a hung jury at this point is fine. Just get it over with, say all the right things. But ultimately, the political pressure on him is going to be so high, and people are going to start asking questions because now the evidence is out there. You knew about this Proctor stuff all that time, and you allowed this. You knew about that Sally Port video, and you allowed this. You knew that these federal experts who basically said there couldn't have been a car accident, but yet you tried this case. Why? There's no answers for this stuff.
Yeah.
So
I have a big problem with the Sally Port video. I actually need to. I was working that day and I was kind of not focused on the video of it. I was just listening to it in the background. I need to listen to that again because
it's bad. No, watch it. Watch it carefully. It's bad.
Did he suborn perjury? I mean, did it dance there?
Buchanan testified on direct that it was a fair and accurate depiction of the Sally Port. He identified himself as coming out of like the driver's side. Mind you, the car is flipped around. They just ignored the fact that it was inverted, but the timestamp was like not in conjunction. They're ignoring the fact that people are literally apparating in and out of the video, like in glitches. And then on cross-examination, Buchanan essentially admitted, yes, it's inverted. They just learned about it. They just got it. And then he, forgot who was who. He got all dumb about it, which is another thing. I don't think he testifies at a retrial because I think he's got real problems.
Absolutely. He was on the text messages. That's
but beyond the text messages, I think he's got real Sally Port problems.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. But I was more worried about Lally. Do you think Lally was supporting perjury?
Yes.
Yes. How could he not know? Fair and accurate? Why would you ask it
could he not
know it's not?
I mean, first of all, they get this video in the middle of trial. Hello, red flag number one.
Yeah.
It comes from the Canton police, years later, you get it in mid-trial. Maybe that's like red flag number two. People apparating in and out, red flag number three. The clock not matching up, red flag number four. And then presumably, if you know the case for 2 years, you know who's driving the car. You know how this, and even asked, like, where is the driveway that leads into the Sally Port in connection to the door? He had to have known that was the opposite of what's depicted. He had to know that the wrong taillight was showing, that by not showing the right taillight, that the jury would not be able to see what it looked like before, Proctor took his first picture. And then, of course, he had to know that Proctor is just, I'm sorry, off camera, humping the right taillight, but now he's out of view.
But he's pretending it's the other taillight.
Right. And then he had to know, when the defense had the video, that they have a second video. It's a little darker, but it's in the correct format, that it's missing 42 minutes. And when it comes on, as if someone had spliced it and then put it back, Proctor is standing right next to the right taillight. So do I think Lally suborned perjury? I don't know, but he either suborned perjury or is so naive and so incompetent that he should be fired either way for something like that, unless he has a really good excuse not to do that. Because
I mean, as well as I do as a former prosecutor, the ethical obligations are
of course
so much higher. Ignorance is no defense.
To
any of this.
He watched this video with Buchanan, and you'd have to believe that no one ever said, just we're going with, this is the right way, right? Like, Buchanan never felt compelled to tell him. And, look, you could make an argument if there was a retrial to move to kick Lally off the case and say that guy's a material witness to the defense, because I think him and Yuri were cooking up perjury. And if Lally was alone with Buchanan watching the video, and there's a reason to believe that they concocted this, then I would argue that he's a defense witness. Lally.
That would be crazy.
I can see that. I do think if it does have to be retried, it will be in front of this judge. There's no way she's giving it up.
She's not going to give it up.
No, I agree with that. I mean, I don't think she would.
Another question. We get a question unrelated for Shannon. The highway killer case of the 80s, is it officially closed without finding?
Yes. It's not closed. It's a cold case. It's open. It's it's actually, ironically enough, been coming up a lot in the past 2 years. There's been some local guys who are have filmed a documentary on it, and I'm excited to see what they come up with, because they're extraordinarily bright guys, and they seem to have a different outlook on what may or may not have transpired, which does involve a ridiculous amount of corruption within the DA's office. But it's still technically listed as an open cold case. All of the cases are, all of the victims.
Yeah, they don't ever close a murder case, right?
Keep moving.
Unless it's like unless they have a conviction.
Which is the awful part, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, for Karen Reed, you know, hung jury. Yes, it's better than a guilty. But while everyone sits around and waits for Morrissey to decide what his future for politics looks like, or the next DA, there's no statute of limitations on murder, so it can come back at any time. You know, I mean, that's a tough pill to swallow at that age. You know, she's a young woman.
It is. They took away her career too. I mean, they took away her license, her job, her car. It's just like everything's on hold for her.
Again, that's like the mind-boggling thing. Like I can't even wrap my head around that. You know, taking my license.
Yeah. Can't even
You
drive.
know, license practice. You know, that's.
This is a very independent person too.
Yeah,
and I
relate to it. You know, I mean, as a single woman, mother, you know, I relate to it. I do. She's clearly worked her ass off to get where she is. She's well put together. She clearly has the educational background. She's got the work background. She's very successful. That's threatening to a lot of people. So I of course, it's the first thing they take. It's her dignity.
I guess, what would your final thoughts be tonight that you want to kind of share?
I'll say it again, Mike. You know, I mean, you know, I think the last time I was on, people believe, and I can't scream this enough from the rooftops. This is not. I do not believe that this is a conspiracy where Michael Morrissey sat down with 15 people, including all the McAlberts and created this scheme to do this. It's not how corruption works in real life. In real life, it really does happen that quick. Listen, this happened, but it's at my buddy's house. You know, just it's a slam dunk. Just do it quietly. Press is probably going to be involved a little bit. Just let them know it's done. It's done. It was an accident. It's a DUI thing. It's not important. Very sad. Move on. Look over here. Look over here, as Alan Jackson. Look over there. But it's that's the way real corruption works. And then, you know, it's another guy or another person who says, "Oh, well, I got to cover for that lie. Oh shit, you know, I got to cover for that lie." And you got this spiraling of, and it gets out of hand, because the idea was it was never supposed to be public in the first place. So what seemed like a minuscule little thing that was just a favor for a buddy now is skyrocketing. And that's the way corruption works. We've seen it here in Bristol County. I've seen it. We've had Eric Mack on here. He's described it. You know, I mean, you in my opinion, that the Anthony Harding case, you don't get much more corrupt than that one. You know, you've got like a family member investigating a shooting. It's mind-boggling. You know, I mean, and you don't tell anybody that you've got this relationship. That seems very Morrissey-esque. But that's how corruption works. It's not people setting out to do something bad. It's people setting out to do something good for one other person, not the global good.
Yeah, to cover up for somebody.
Yeah, and
you help me, I help you.
I think it comes from a good place. It's just when you're in that office, that's why we've got to be so picky about who we elect. You have to find someone with the strength and character to choose the global good over their friends. And that's a very hard characteristic to find and identify in an election season. But I will say thank you again, Mike, for having me on, and Mark. It's I'm always watching you.
Yeah.
It's great talking to you. You're genius legal mind, and it's always fun to I have all these notes. I'm like, oh, I gotta ask Mark this.
So
We have another question for you that came in, Shannon and Mark too. If the jury ends up hung, can the Attorney General step in and stop further prosecution against Karen Reed, overriding the DA's decision?
So I believe she can put pressure. I believe she can take over the investigation. Whether or not she can actually preclude him from doing it, I don't know. I think that that's the line, and I don't think it's ever been crossed. But I know she can take over the investigation. But as far as actually curtailing him and preventing him from filing it again, I don't know.
Excellent. What do you think, Attorney Bederow?
So I've thought about this a lot, and it starts with the premise. I don't know what happened in the House or how it ended up where it did, but in terms of the corruption question, I actually think this case is rife from top to bottom with various forms of corruption that started sometime that night that did involve some members of the police to some extent, and probably went into the DA's office, but for different reasons. So, I mean, the reality is that these people are covering up something. We know that. We don't know why. They're clearly all with their calls and butt dials and everything covering up something. Proctor has an irrational opinion and involvement and hatred that doesn't make any sense. He's corrupt. But when you now apply the evidence of the case, to me, there are indisputable facts which conclusively establish corruption. And it all goes back to the ARCA stuff. If there's no car accident, which I believe is scientifically accurate, then how the hell did 45 pieces of taillight end up on the lawn? And the only answer that I can come up with is because Proctor and his goons or himself planted it, which is by definition planting evidence and corruption. You know that Proctor talked about getting his wife a gift or receiving a gift. That's by definition corruption. So now they have this terrible case. They know that the car accident doesn't make any sense, yet they keep going. A year ago, when these theories started happening, you had the DA do something that I've never seen a district attorney do in 25 years in any place in America. Basically give a hostage video press conference, like as if he's literally being held hostage and someone had a gun to his head holding up the cue cards saying, you're going to read this. And what started out with a semi-reasonable statement of don't harass witnesses, which I think is, don't harass witnesses. No one should harass witnesses, morphed into a lecture about how strong the evidence was against Karen Reed, how guilty she was, and how these are good people being harassed. And he violated, I think by my count, 13 different ethical rules. That's corrupt. There was no reason to do that. They continue the case. They agree to use Proctor, knowing everything he did. That's terrible. What real DA would ever do that unless there's a reason? Then they get the actual ARCA report, and they know, now the DA knows that she didn't do this. It can't be. And what do? They keep going forward. Yeah, but sir, you don't have an expert. Yes, we do. We have Trooper Paul. He'll do it. He's the worst expert anyone's ever seen in their life. He's a non-expert. Yet they keep going and they keep doing this, and they keep sending their prosecutor to prosecute a case they know is not a good case. So to me, this case started with corruption. It was built on corruption, and to this day is corrupt. And when this is over, whatever the outcome is, someone's going to ask Morrissey these tough questions about why you allow this case to go forward, knowing all these things you do, why you gave that press conference. You've never apologized for it. You've never admitted you were wrong. You knew Proctor was full of shit for months. You didn't care. You knew the ARCA stuff blew up your case. You didn't care. Yet you're still trying to send her to prison. Why? Is it to push off the feds? Is that part of the corruption? You wrote a letter bitching and moaning about the feds, and they told you to piss off. Is that why you're doing it? And if he's doing it for his own self-preservation, that's also corrupt. So I think it's corrupt at every way you look at it.
Yeah, I honestly can't wrap my head around the fact that they're doing this for this case. I understand it's Boston police officer. That's absolutely terrible. But if I still don't really know what their theory of the case is, so forgive me if I'm off. But I'm pretty sure it's somewhat alleging that she was drunk and she hit him with a car, but she didn't get up that morning with an itinerary to hit him that night with the car. Somewhere in there, I think, is the Commonwealth's theory. But I can't wrap my head around why they went this hard for essentially a DUI accident, except for his desperate need to get the information the feds had.
Right, which is corrupt. But you also need to follow the evidence. So supposedly, they have this car accident theory, which even if you don't want to hear how corrupt they are, I think in the first 24 hours, if she's running around saying, I think I hit him, it's not unreasonable to have her as a prime suspect initially. I think that's fair. But of course, they didn't look at anyone else and go in the house, which makes no sense, which is probably part of the corruption. But then once they get the report from the experts, whether that was their theory, these are trained professionals, presumably. They supposedly, are intelligent lawyers who know what they're doing. And if you're following the evidence, once you get the ARCA report, your theory is a joke. It's dead. It's gone. It's not accurate. And at a minimum, what are you supposed to do? They should have asked the feds for permission to speak to them and test for ourselves. How credible are these guys? They should have hired their own independent experts. Run this theory. Does this make sense? And if the answer that they get from everyone is those ARCA reports are accurate and those, we agree, then you dismiss the indictment.
That's it.
But they don't, which again is corrupt. They're trying a case without probable cause. I think, they want to see what the feds have. It's all about Morrissey's self-preservation, delaying the inevitable. He's kicking the can down the road. Mm-hmm. This is only my opinion, so I'm not, stating, anything other than that. But I think all of the available evidence says that this case is just rife with corruption at every turn.
There's a question here about the defense. Do you think that there was a defense strategy to help the feds at all?
Was the defense strategy to help the feds?
Yeah.
Well, I think it goes hand in hand, but I don't think their strategy officially was to do anything to get their client exonerated and beyond having her found not guilty, hopefully convince people that she's actually innocent so she can get her life and reputation back. And I think the biggest tragedy of a hung jury in this case will be the amount of people who still hang on and say, oh, well, it's a technicality and she probably did it, which I think is a shame. So that's another reason. Hopefully she gets the full acquittal and they can go to the next step of, getting herself exonerated publicly and restore to normal life.
And hopefully,
I do think that there was a little bit of a strategy in terms of obviously the third party culprit and the Moden. But unfortunately, I think that in this particular case, it was almost too effective. Like I said previously, they're so good. And comparatively speaking to what else you're seeing in that courtroom is so bad. I think the jury is now putting an onerous burden on the defense. Like, you're so good, prove it to me.
Yeah.
Make it, and you're putting the burden on the defense, which they can't do, which is why I'm very interested to see the reaction after the Tutor Rodriguez.
I can't wait till tomorrow. It's going to be a big day tomorrow. I just feel like tomorrow could be the day. We'll see. We've been saying that for how many days now? I gotta get back
to work at some point, man. I mean, Jesus. Like my whole firm is watching this. We're all on different times too, because someone has to go to the ladies' room or take a phone call, and everyone's paused.
Oh, tell me about it. I sit here and wait. I'm like, I could do this dog walk in another half hour. I'm just gonna wait. As soon as I leave,
something big is gonna happen. Yeah,
every freaking time.
I've got all of my friends now, like just immediately coming to my house after work to watch the recaps.
You know, I just
Well,
thought of something,
yeah.
you know, just to go back to like all the corruption and whatnot, if it's all right.
Yeah.
I thought one of the most telling things to say what a joke all of this was Tully. And knowing that he testified that he knew John O'Keefe was going to that house, to Brian Albert's house. He knew that they had all been together at the waterfall. He knew that Karen Reed was going with him, knew that, she dropped him off, admitted that he found John O'Keefe lying, or that someone in the police department found him lying, in the front lawn, not on the street, by the way, not where you would normally think a car accident occurred. It was only the trooper Paul, he launched him 30 feet into the middle of the lawn, not dressed appropriately, although some people don't wear coats. That's true, but missing a shoe. Okay. Had a cocktail glass next to him. And he really pushed back and even used words like, I would push back, or I would argue. What kind of witness goes like this? Like, I'm battling you on basic facts, and tried to suggest that it never even occurred to him to just knock on the door, not arrest anyone, not get a warrant, but just to say,
Ask.
was he in here? Did you guys see him? Did he leave? Do you know? Didn't need to do it. And he finished up with, what's the big deal? I wear shorts in the winter all the time. So him lying in the lawn with one shoe and no coat struck him as nothing. I mean, these people are clowns.
Yeah.
Who takes that seriously?
I can't wrap my head around this one. So you've got one dead Boston police officer, nobody else around, who is dead, clearly freezing. At some point, at this point, he's clearly 80 degrees. So been out there for a period of time. And what does he have in common with this front lawn that he's on? There's another Boston cop that lives inside. You don't go in guns drawn to see if this was an execution.
Exactly.
Of a cop.
We'll see if anyone else is dead inside.
That's what I mean. Like, that's the first thing you do. You absolutely go in to make sure that the other cop is alive.
You at least knock on the door and say, hey, can I look around? Can I look through? I mean, I had a fire alarm go off.
This is the only
alive? I had a fire alarm go off on one Thanksgiving, like one of the ones that goes to the fire department. Yeah. They came in. They were like, hey, can we look through your house? I'm like, what are you looking for? Weed plants or something? Like, what? You can look in every room. I don't care. Go ahead. Like the fire department, they wanted to look in every room. Like, I let them. I just go ahead. I'm having Thanksgiving dinner and I burned something. Like, there's the oven. Thank you so much for coming. I'm sorry you had to come on Thanksgiving, but like,
I just can't believe as a safety mechanism they didn't protect the cop in the house.
You'll never see.
How do you not do that?
You'll never see another homicide investigation of a police officer that gets literally no response anywhere in any jurisdiction ever again, because the reality is they did, normally every cop will go, it's all hands on deck. We've talked about this before, and they'll do everything to protect the police officer and get to the truth. And they did that in this case, but they just protected the wrong police officer.
Yeah. It was the wrong one.
Crazy.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. It was beautifully well put, Mark. It was really well put.
Well, hopefully we'll never see that again.
You won't see that again. That's another part of the corruption. You've never seen them bend over backwards to ignore the investigation into a death of a police officer. But this guy, is the king of Canton, and his family are, they're the Alberts of Canton. So that's how it works.
Someone wants Yannetti for Norfolk County DA. I hope he runs. Let's see if we get him to run.
That'd be awesome.
I don't think he would run.
Be funny.
Yeah.
I'll jump on that campaign. I'll absolutely help out.
I bet you will.
I'll volunteer. I'll donate my time.
100%. Have you decided if you're running again?
You always ask me.
I know.
Every time.
When I have an answer, I'll let you know. I promise.
It's not a no. It's not a no. This is what you take away.
Not a no. It's not a yes either.
It's okay. We're good with that.
Still in recovery from the last.
I don't want to know.
That's I have to deal with. It's ugly out there, I mean, that's the problem. And that's what breaks my heart. I would love to put it on someone else, but I almost feel guilty at this point because at least I've got the calluses now. And I wouldn't even know if I would subject any of my colleagues or people I respect to this kind of heat that comes with going against a titan that is corrupt and has all the money and has all the pockets, and it gets very ugly. It's exhausting on so many levels. Like I said, when we got 40%, I was all I can say, I was shocked because I thought he would have at least bought himself 60. But it's hard to make a decision because I'm at the age now where it's like
not much time.
I'm enjoying my life. Do I really want to
do all
go back and put it all out there and deal with this nonsense again? But at the end of the day, I clearly can't get out of the fight when it comes to corruption and bad cops, because I have the utmost respect for all of the good cops that I will fight till the end of days against the bad ones, because they make my good cops look like shit. And I have zero tolerance for that bullshit.
Absolutely. I got one more question for you. You mentioned colleagues. Have your colleagues been bringing up this Karen Reed case? Have they been talking about it?
Everybody I know is talking about it.
What do they think?
I mean, I go anywhere. I go to the grocery store. People are talking about Karen Reed. It's clear across the gamut. 100% of the people are 100% Karen Reed is not guilty. But they all believe for different reasons. Like Mark and I were discussing. Like I thought they lost it at Proctor. Mark thinks the slam dunk was the archive. Like everyone's got their moment where it was 100%. This is definitely a not guilty, and no one can wrap their head around what the hell is going on right now. How 12 people could not come up with this, and everybody, and I'm sure Mark's getting this where in New York as well. Because you're a lawyer, everybody wants to know what you think, what's going on, and if I could identify what a jury was thinking, I would have a much nicer office in my house. I would no longer be worried about going to work tomorrow because I wouldn't work anymore. I would take 2 majestical cases per year out of, an obligation to do the right thing, and that would be it. But I don't have that magic 8 ball, and nobody does.
It's getting
a jury.
Last several days, maybe 4 or 5 days, it's been getting daily coverage in the New York Post, which is a rare thing. I mean, obviously the New York Post is like the king of true crime tabloid. I mean, that's like the gold standard. But usually when it's out of town stuff, it gets a story here or there. But in the last 4 or 5, I mean, they did a story on her getting yelled at by the judge.
You knew that was going to happen.
Yep. I mean, but of all the things they picked up, they pick up that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But they've been talking about the jury. They've been talking about, the warring factions and the craziness out of the courthouse. So it's definitely, it was already a big story, but it's getting big out here too.
Yeah. I mean, it's pathetic that, like I said, I mean, I really have been following this. I mean, since Mike, I think I was pretty much when Aiden started following it, because I was following you and you were following him, and that kind of all just spiraled downhill. So it's been like a year and a half, and one of the other things I'll say about corruption in Massachusetts is media. When they don't want bad news out, they can make that possible.
Oh, definitely.
It's mind-boggling. I ran against a guy who is anti-Roe v. Wade when Roe v. Wade was overturned, and not one single paper wrote that he absolutely.
Now that shows you. I'm glad you brought that up, because I know that this Norfolk County DA had a media campaign, and it included even like going after people like me, like to try to recruit different people on different sides. Just what they've done, and you could see like they've gotten away with this for years with like bigger reporters, because they want to trade for access. That's it. They want someone to, give them the tip off when someone's getting arrested. And so a lot of these professional reporters, they're not going to burn their big sources. And it's really gross. It really
It's
is.
honestly why I started following you, Mike. Because I obviously, I was kind of new to the Twitter and YouTube world, and I was watching you during the campaign, and I really liked what you were saying, and you had the balls to say it, which was such a nice feeling when you were working so hard. I actually had to publish commercials every single day to talk about issues and buy airtime in order to get a single newspaper to mention my name.
Unbelievable.
And I was the first woman to ever run for DA in Bristol County, and they wouldn't even write that. So it was a breath of fresh air to kind of get into independent journalism, where you could say what you really wanted without having to fall in line as a good soldier, like so many of the big papers are around here. But it's really, if you live in Massachusetts, please write editorials, write to, if you respect the papers, write letters, write emails, write to your local paper. Say that you are interested in the real news, and why weren't they covering the Karen Reed case for the past year and a half, when it was known that there was a potential for corruption within the Massachusetts State Police after the CDL thing, after the overtime thing, after the Anthony Hardin thing, after the other thing. Why isn't that front page news? It's something that affects us all. If you're going to put on the front page news that there is a sobriety checkpoint on the front of every newspaper in Bristol County, Norfolk County, Plymouth County, and so forth, then it should also be up there that the police are under investigation. And if you get pulled over, if you're a young
they never corrected that original story, right? About the whole mowing them down was on video, right?
On video. Never took it down.
That means
no retractions. No retractions.
Officially retracted.
Yeah, I mean, if I make a mistake like that, I would retract it immediately and be like, I made a mistake. What?
Mike, to come on here today, I checked my case sites. Like, I went on Westlaw to double check my case law to make sure that yesterday something wasn't overturned.
Yeah.
Because that would be my biggest fear, is giving false information out
there. And that's why I love the audience when we make a mistake here. That's what I love about the live feedback. If we make a mistake, they correct us. They let us know, like, you missed this, you screwed up that. I love it. This, I want to make sure that we get corrected so that we put out the right information. I want to thank you both. You guys are so good tonight. Attorney Shannon McMahon, and again, of course, Attorney Mark Bederow, Bederow Law. You can follow him. Got a website, bederowlaw.com. His Twitter X handle, Bederow Law. Shannon, you're also where people follow you too.
Oh God, I changed my Twitter name, so I think it's so it's at least not 8,000 numbers. It is Shannon McLaw, MICLAW.
Like that. That's easy. Shannon at Shannon McLaw. That's
nope,
easy.
Shannon McLaw.
Love it.
That's the Twitter thing. Handle is it called? The Twitter handle?
Yes.
But yeah, any other questions, you can easily email me. I'm at attorneyshannonmcmahon.com, at gmail.com. Sorry. But thank you very much for having me again, Mike. I love you.
Thank you.
And Mark, it's
good seeing you again. Yep.
Have a great night, and we'll see everyone Monday morning. Thank you so much again, Attorney Mark Bederow and Attorney Shannon McMahon. And thank you, Mazda Media, for being here earlier. Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
You too.
And we'll probably check in again tomorrow night. We'll see what's going on. We'll be covering whatever happens tomorrow. Someone says, wherever you get involved, corruption is rampant everywhere. Please pass the pepper. Thank you so much. That's a good comment. That's why if you're interested in this stuff, you could start a YouTube channel anywhere. You could start a blog. So much you can do if you want to cover this stuff. You don't have to cover Karen Reed. This is going to be over, hopefully, very soon. But wherever you are, there is stuff to cover. People are not showing up to court. People are not showing up to city council hearings, all that stuff going on. Yeah, everyone keeps telling me to get this Truth Revealed guy on. I kind of like the body, what do we call them? The body experts, the body language experts. This guy's more like a language expert, but I don't know. I mean, I want to know more about him. Who is he? He says he's a federal agent. He was a federal agent. I don't know. Like to see much more on him. People keep telling me to check it out. I checked out some of it. It looks interesting. Cindy Wade sent $5. Thank you so much, Cindy. There was a lot of super chats that came up again tonight. I try to post them up. It is difficult sometimes to post them all up there. I want to thank everyone who's been supporting us. I'm going to check out some Venmo. I saw some Venmo action coming through tonight. And again, if you're at court tomorrow and you see any agitators, just ignore them. Turn your back to them. They want you to, respond to them. Don't do it. Janice sent $20 on the Venmo. She says, thank you so much for your great shows. I look forward to each show. Thank you so much, Janice. Tiffany, wow, sent $50. Very generous, Tiffany. She said, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed tonight's roundtable. Thank you so much, Tiffany. Wow, that's very generous of you. All right, I think that's it so far. Hold on, I want to make sure I'm not missing anything else. And we had a Cash App from Roxanne. That came in actually on Friday. She said, thank you. I think I read that one. And Robert also sent $20 on Friday. Thank you so much, Robert. And he said, thanks for a great job. All right. I think we got them all down. Yeah, we're going to be covering court tomorrow. I do want to read something. Now, what I'm going to read to you is something that was sent to me. I'm not going to read you every detail of it. And I have no way of vetting this. I have no way of knowing if this is true. But I just got a funny feeling on it. I have a funny feeling that it is legitimate. And I may even play some video at the end. I want to read one thing here. Here it is. Again, like I said, I can't vet that this is true. But I damn hope it is. This person sent me a message and they said the jury has already agreed on a not guilty for the top charge. The sidebar Thursday was a note that the court did not want to go to public as it had this info. The jury wasn't asking a question, but they felt the need to update the court. Their note stated that they have agreed on not guilty on the top charge and were split and didn't know if they would come to an agreement on the lesser charge. It continued that they would sleep on it and provide the court with an answer they thought they would be able to come to an agreement by noon on Friday. As there was no question in the note, it was agreed at sidebar that no response would be sent back to the jury. We were hoping that someone would catch on to what happened and start reporting on it to help pick up steam. We were going to through streams from that day to see if anyone picked up on it. We thought you would have picked up on it during your stream, but you guys mistakenly looked at the wrong area of the video. The end of this day sidebar on Thursday. Don't focus on Erin O'Keefe leaving. Watch again. EL returns. Elizabeth Little returns and whispers a quick 2 words into Karen Reed's ear. David Yannetti then goes into detail explaining to Karen Reed. Watch Karen Reed's reaction. Eyebrows raise. Tries not to smile, looks over to Elizabeth Little with a slight smirk, confirming she knows the context. Now, again, this could be someone that just trolled on me, just to see if I read something like this that isn't correct. But it also could be something. And I just have a funny feeling on it. And so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to end with that sidebar. Let's just replay that sidebar and just take a look. And like I said, let's be in the moment. Let's just think positively and let's hope for the best here. Maybe this is it. Maybe it's over tomorrow. Maybe we're going to find out that they're hung on some lesser charge. I don't know. Mark Bederow doesn't seem to think that, but it could explain some things. Let's just watch this. All right, have it on the screen. I love this one. Misinformation is not for me. What if it's not misinformation? What if this is truth? Misinformation too is usually, if I was trying to give you some misinformation, I would probably act like it was all true, factual. I didn't do that. I let you know that I'm not sure. Someone said I think it's fake. It definitely could be. But I want to see what you guys think when you see the expressions here because yeah, we're gonna watch Little. Here it is right here. What is she saying?
Jim.
All right, take it with a grain of salt. Yeah, I definitely said it was not vetted.
Yeah, I'll talk.
I just thought it was interesting considering the video because this was people were kept going back to this. She looks happy, doesn't she?
Rise for the jury.
Yeah, she doesn't look sad, does she? So that's why we just gotta keep our optimism. Let's just keep going.
Was the session please be seated?
Hey, jurors. We all appreciate how hard you've been working, and I understand you'd like to stop for the day, so we will certainly do that. We appreciate everything you're doing. I do have to give you those same precautions. Please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case, please disregard it and let us know. Clear your heads. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good, all right. Hurry up. Be seated.
All right, we'll see everybody tomorrow morning. Thank
I'll
you.
see you all
you.
tomorrow. Have a great weekend. Have a great Sunday night. We will see you tomorrow or in the afternoon, whenever the jury comes back.